Okay, so I came up to Pure Vitality Friday, and I got here. Oh, actually, it was a pretty tough trip up. Usually it takes 6 hours, and it took me 7.5 hours to get here. So I got here late, and I was really hungry. Couldn't find a place to eat that I wanted to. But let me back up 2 weeks prior to that, because that's where things really started to happen for me. 2 weeks prior to this, I was going to this special prayer service at our church. And we were praying. The idea was to pray for the church and then to pray for individuals in the church. And about 10 minutes into the prayer, I started coughing. And it was strange because I hadn't been coughing at all in the weeks prior. So it was like all of a sudden you just start coughing, right? And it was just really strange to me. And then it occurred to me what I had learned here at Pure Vitality, that can be associated with a spirit. So I actually said what they said to say, which was, "I bind you in the name of Jesus Christ." And it stopped. Coughing stopped. Okay, at this point, I wasn't sure whether I was convincing myself of this or what. So I went back the following week, and when that happened the following week, and it did happen again, I started coughing again, a little bit more this time, but I again, just before I intended to bind the spirits, I heard a voice coming out of my throat, as if it was a disembodied voice, but it was my voice.
Leave me alone.
Yeah, that's right. Leave me alone. The voice said, "Leave me alone." Not strongly, more like just like, "Leave me alone." And that was it. And I'm going, "Oh no, this is not good." But I had planned to come up here and do this baptism at least 4 weeks before, maybe 3 weeks before. So I knew, and anybody that was around me knew what my plans were. My plans were to come up here and be baptized in the Spirit. And so those 2 weeks were really difficult in many ways. Just like I had physical symptoms that couldn't sleep at night, definitely headaches getting up, just all sorts of problems. Now, I thought that they were all associated, and I'm sure some of them were, with like a mold attack in the summer, but that was pretty much over with. So, and in addition, I was on my own. My wife is in China, so I was also separated from her. And I was kind of living a fairly alone existence. So I wasn't in the greatest of spirits when I came up here. And I would have come up here anyway. I would have powered through it. It wouldn't have mattered. But I got here a day later than I expected. And it was the result of me having to do some things that I just couldn't get done. It was like such an effort to just get started doing what I needed to do. It was like fighting against a rubber band that was holding you around the waist, and you're just fighting against it, and you're trying to move against it, and then you're getting pulled back. And so anyway, I come up on Monday night, and I learn I'm the first to be baptized, which means I don't get to watch anybody else do it, which is usually my MO, to watch somebody else go through it before I go through it. That's not important, because as soon as Jason said that you're first, I was more excited, I think, than anything else. But those intervening 2 weeks, I think a week prior to that, actually the day after the second experience on Sunday, maybe it was a Monday, maybe it was later in the week. Maybe it was more like a Wednesday. I sent a message to Jason telling him what happened because I knew I was coming up here to get baptized and I wanted him to know what I had experienced. So I told him, and then I had heard what he was going through, and I asked to speak to him. And we were trying to arrange a time, and then Jason was having some problems with his mom. And then I realized I don't really need to speak to him because everything I needed to say, I said. I told him the experience that I had, and just expressing that to someone else, it changed the atmosphere. It really, like a heaviness, a weight was taken off my shoulders just by sharing that with someone else. Because there's an element of what's really going on here. You're going through all these other associated physical problems. Are you looking for some kind of self-pity or something like that? I don't know. Anyway, but I thought that it's good to report anyway. And Jason later can tell you his side of the story on that if he's so inclined. But the actual experience was I got up here. For those of you that haven't gone through it, you're given a set of clothes that you're in the baptismal with. The water is so inviting. It's just like once you get in, you do not want to get out. If somebody, I don't know, somebody had poured bubble bath in there, I probably would have just hid my head and stayed in the water. But it was very inviting, and the room, there were probably 6 or 7 people in the room with me, and there was a real sense of unity, absolute unity, and just a desire for the appearance of the Lord. Like there was we were in unified desire to hear from the Lord. So I got in the water, and before I got in the water, this is the key right here. Well, the key, one of the keys, but I would say it's, from your point of view, perhaps the most important. Chrissy came up to me and she said, did you ever have an experience in your life where you had fear associated with going in the water? And Jenny, do you know anything about that?
Did Dad throw you in the water at natatorium?
Yes. When I was a kid, my father, when I was, I guess, maybe 4 or 5 years old, pieces of it are coming back. My father took me to the natatorium. He thought he was going to teach me to swim in one day. And when I wasn't learning what he wanted me to learn, even though he had taught me what he wanted to teach me, he got so upset. Well, maybe upset's the wrong word. He got so, sometimes he lacked patience, especially if he assumed that you knew what he wanted you to know. He just picked me up and he said, I'm going to throw you in the water. And he proceeded to throw me in the water. Now, he didn't drop me in the water. He threw me in the water. I probably flew 10 feet in the air. I was that young. And there was a sense of terror that was associated with that. But that terror was overcome immediately by anger when I hit that water. When I hit that water, I was so angry at him that I forgot that I couldn't swim. And I swam to the side of the pool, and then he looked down at me with his, like, I told you, you know how to swim. And it was like, it's a part of family lore. Like, my father used it as a way to show, how he knows best. We know more than we think we know, and, that sort of thing. but it became a part of family lore, right? And it was joked about, laughed about more than anything else. Well, she came up and she told me, she said that she said the Lord is putting on her heart that there was a spirit of fear inside me. Now, I don't remember a spirit of fear. I remember that anger. And so I realized it's like the anger covered the fear. And like, to me, that was a huge, right there. I mean, if we had stopped it right there, that would have been enough. Just figuring out that anger had been covering my fear, and that a lot of feelings in my life had been covering my fear, that it had been hidden. So that isn't the end of the story. The end of the story, or rather the most important part of the story, was when I actually got into the water. And Jason, having known about what I was going through, he told me over dinner tonight, he can speak more into this, that he sensed that God was telling him that this is what we were dealing with. This was a spirit of fear. And we proceeded to go through what would you call it?
I'm really interested to hear what you're going to say, like what your experience was.
Okay.
So what would you call it?
I would call it the spirit was released from my body and soul. The spirit, I felt it. I mean, I went under the water like 3 times, 2 or 3 times before the process started, but I could feel it kind of welling up in me. But when it was welling up in me, I was unsure. I was thinking, it's there, but is it going to come out? I'm going, I really was not confident that this guy was going to come out. And at this point, I was pretty sure that there was something inside that wanted to get out. Right? But to my credit, I had people around me that knew how to help. Well, the Lord did it. The Lord extracted the spirit from my spirit. And it was fairly dramatic. I mean, there was some yelling and shouting and screaming and I was kind of a participant. I mean, I could see what was going on, but it was like, literally, it was like something was trying to get out of me. Wanted to hang on, but also wanted to get out. Wanted to hang on, wanted to get out. And it was being pulled out of me. I'm trying to think of what analogy. It's like there's something caught in your throat and you're coughing to get it out, like just get it out of you. It's just like it's caught there, and and it's like, somebody help me get this out of me.
It sounded like a demonic growl.
Did it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a guttural growl that started coming out.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Then it turned into more of a shout.
Mm-hmm.
And
it was a demon.
Yeah, so can I interject just for a minute?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, this was so beautiful to see. When I talk about deliverance, sometimes the terminology I'll use is like pulling teeth. It's possible to cast out a demon sometimes that just doesn't want to go, is not ready to go. But then you have to be very careful, because these demons have rights to be there and they want to come right back. The kind of work that the Lord does on us when he's healing, our soul, and then when he's saying, okay, it's time for this demon to go, this spirit has no more legal rights to be here, it's like a tooth that's just kind of hanging on by a thread. As kids, we would go to my dad and he would reach in and touch the tooth, and nope, not ready. And we're like, darn, and everybody in the neighborhood knew to go to my dad because he had touched the tooth. Nope, not going to do it. But if it was ready, he'd say, it's ready. Are you ready for it? And they were like, everybody would be excited. And he would reach in there and just pop that tooth right out because it was ready to come out. And he, everybody trusted him to know the difference. I see when there's a spirit that's ready to come out like that, when it was growling like this, I knew, I had the privilege of being involved in the baptism, and the Lord had already made it clear to me the connection from what had happened earlier in the week with him, or the last couple of weeks, and that this was a spirit of fear. There was no doubt in my mind we were dealing with the spirit of fear. So it wasn't a matter of like a lot of theatrics or like anything that needed to be done. But it needed to be told directly to go. So that's what I did at that moment. That it had to go at that point. So I was using my authority to address the demon and to make it come out. But then Michael had to speak it out. It was important for him to come and he was coming out of agreement with this and ejecting it. So he spoke those words out, and I'm telling you, it was very demonstrative. It was very obvious what was happening, and that there was a spirit of fear that was cast out in that moment. And to see the peace come over him afterwards was incredible. So speak into that.
How do you describe peace? Peaceful peace?
Well, I can tell you this, right afterwards, Michael was like, I feel like jumping on a skateboard and riding down the road.
Oh, yeah. Well, the reason I said that, actually...
No fear.
I wanted to run out into the middle of the street, and just see if playing in the street with a bunch of cars going up and down this busy highway out front would scare me. It was
but before we
I wanted to test it,
Yeah, before we went back there, he made the comment, I don't know what it would be like to live a life without fear.
Yes. Yeah.
And here he was experiencing no fear.
Yeah.
So
It was so, the fear was so much a part of me that I couldn't imagine living without a sense of fear. And it was, it was then that I realized what God meant by peace. He really does mean an absence of fear. I mean, any fear that you have, it's gone. Now, what is it? What's replaced by an absence of fear? I don't know if it's peace. It's just an absence of fear. And since then, I've felt the tingles of fear, but I've realized what it was, and I said, no, that's not for me. You know what I mean? It's like an old habit that comes back more than anything else. And the thing is, I do recognize, hey, if there were like 2 or 3 people saying, hey, Michael, let's go out. You want to go out and play in the middle of the street? I don't think I would have done it. But I mean, the feeling was there. The recognition of it being dangerous was also still there. It wasn't like it took away my recognition of what's dangerous in life. But,
and what happened to the anger part? Because you assumed this was anger prior to the fear, but I look at anger as a spirit of fear. I don't know, is that right? Anger can be associated with fear.
Well, so Mike made the comment that he had always associated that event with being angry. So
Right.
There was some anger that were showing up after that. But yeah, that's a great question. Just how interconnected were they? Was it just the event that, he thought it was anger and then the spirit of fear was able to settle in? Because during the baptism, it was very clear to me the Lord was saying this had been here all along. Like this was the entry point for a spirit of fear, and Michael has had it in his life, his entire life. It's been under the surface, and it's been part of the foundation of how he's lived his life. So it was, that 4 or 5 year old time that was so impressionable that this spirit was there. But how much it's connected to anger is a really good question, because I don't know that he's had enough time to, really process through the feelings and to see if anger is still coming up at the same, I would bet that it's going to feel different,
I think I mentioned this. My whole life, if I ever came against a dog that was was like snarling or anything at me, my immediate reaction was first a sense of fear, and then immediately I got angry.
So it's always
with a wild
been connected.
animal. Those were almost instantaneous. Fear and then an overwhelming sense of anger.
We're not in the chapter of strongholds, but we're heading in that direction. At some point, we'll be covering strongholds in this group. But this is an excellent illustration of how these strongholds get established in our life. Spirit of fear, and that one being so tightly associated with anger. So to be determined.
Yeah.
And one other quick question. So when you were at your church the 2 weeks prior during the prayer meetings, and you had your little coughing situation, and that's when you heard you were told to say bind the spirit. So Jason and Mike, was that a temporary hold?
Yeah, temporary.
Because when you bind the spirit, it's a temporary.
Correct.
From what we've learned in
Correct.
the past. Okay.
So what he was doing in that moment is he was keeping that demon from speaking or being active, but it wasn't ejecting the spirit.
Exactly.
And I knew that.
Yeah. So he knew it. I mean, the point is to make this thing stop what it was doing. So we do have spiritual authority to bind spirits.
Okay.
And I wanted to see, it's a kind of test, isn't it? Mm-hmm. If you can say, I bind you and you stop coughing, well, it's not like you can tell a cough to stop normally. Right?
If it's a spiritual type of situation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So now that you feel like the spirit is gone, then and you're no longer in agreement with it, how do you prevent it from coming back in? What's your thing?
Yeah. Well, Jason told me about the lock and the key, and I thought that was really important. He can tell you more about that. But I believe that God did the work. I just trust him for that.
No, I believe it's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes things,
Um,
not to pair them up again or come back in agreement.
yeah.
Yeah, so let me interject for a minute. So there's a thought in some ministry circles that, as soon as a demon is recognized, or, like there's probably a demon here, that it needs to be cast out, right? And that's not really the perspective that we're coming from. There's a timing associated with casting out evil spirits. Because if they have legal rights and there's an established normal inside of that person, like, if they're robbing banks or, like watching porn constantly or whatever the sin pattern is, if you cast out a demon that's involved with that, most likely they're just going to go back to the old pattern right afterwards, even if that demon is successfully cast out. So casting out demons is not that difficult. It's something that all Christians are able to do. But if you do it in the wrong timing, and what scriptures say, if you're not cleaning up the house correctly, if you don't lock the windows and doors and make sure that it's a sealed place, then these demons will go out, get 7 more that are even stronger, and come back. So it's a worse situation than it was before. Now, in Michael's situation, what I believe was happening is over the months and years that he has been doing this deep work with God and spending time in the secret place, he's been diligent to study Scripture and to come into alignment with new truths that he's, being able to see. And more he's seen the lies and the deception. He's read a lot of really good material around fear. I think multiple times read through the chapter on fear and freedom from strongholds. So there's been this transformation that's been happening inside of him and coming into alignment with new spiritual truths, and it's made this demonic spirit very uncomfortable, right? So this is what was happening over the last few weeks, that it knew its time was about over, and leave me alone, like literally saying it out loud and coming out. This spirit was recognizing that this is getting really tight in here. This is getting really uncomfortable. The temperature is getting way too hot, not comfortable to stay in that environment anymore, and really was trying to, put up a smoke screen or, put up a wall, hey, leave me alone. It was interesting, even in the baptism, there was a point that that I was, I saw what the Lord was connecting, like the message, the leave me alone was actually connected to this fear piece. And when I mentioned it, that evil spirit inside of Michael, just immediately said, oh no, that's not it. Like so quick, as soon as I mentioned it, he's like, oh no. So this was that spirit trying to do everything it could to, to kind of stay hidden, trying to stay, let's move on, nothing to see here. And when it was directly addressed in God's timing, it came out, and it wasn't a wrestling match. This didn't take 20 minutes. It took seconds, a minute maybe at most for the full work of that to be released. And then there was peace, like total peace that settled in. So I believe, Michael, now he's already had the opportunity to tell that spirit, nope, you have no place of being here. Like as soon as it tries to come back and settle back in, because of all that inner healing work that he's done, and because he's reestablished his understanding and he's taken in these truths from the Lord, that he can see it for what it is now, and there's true freedom. It's like there's a whole new perspective on fear, and he's recognizing it right away. He's able to see it, reject it, and stay in the truth that God has revealed to him.
Yeah, it's really ironic, right? If I feared 7 demons coming back, that's actually the invitation for them to come.
That's right. Well, Michael, I really appreciate you sharing this story. Is there anything else on your mind?